Welcome to Space News from the Electric Universe, brought to you by the Thunderbolts Project at thunderbolts.info. A new scientific paper provides stunning confirmation of one of the most striking predictions of the electric universe catastrophist hypothesis. The paper, published in the journal Icarus, reports that the water on Saturn's moons and in its rings is remarkably similar to water on our own planet, a completely unexpected finding for planetary scientists. The team of scientists made the discovery by remotely measuring the isotopic ratios of water and carbon dioxide in the Saturnian system. As reported by phys.org, the findings, quote, mean we need to change models of the formation of the solar system because the new results are in conflict with existing models. Models for the formation of the solar system indicate that the deuterium-hydrogen ratio should be much higher in the colder outer solar system than in the hotter inner system, where the Earth formed. Deuterium is more abundant in cold molecular clouds. Some models predict the deuterium-hydrogen ratio should be 10 times higher for the Saturn system than on Earth. But the new measurements show this is not the case for Saturn's rings and satellites, except Saturn's moon Phoebe. Those who follow this series understand this is only the latest in a seemingly endless string of, quote, surprises for the standard model of our solar system's formation and history. Discovery continues to offer no support at all to the widely accepted nebular hypothesis, which states that planets formed from accretion in a nebular cloud that collapsed gravitationally billions of years ago. However, as unexpected as the connection between Saturn and our own planet is for planetary scientists, this connection was in fact explicitly predicted by one of the great scientific heretics of the 20th century. Nearly 3/4 of a century ago, Dr. Immanail Великовский proposed that within human memory, a period of chaos reigned in the inner solar system. In this scenario, one of the migrating planets was Saturn, and it was Velikovsky's seemingly outrageous thesis that the water in Earth's oceans came from the gas giant. In part one of this two-part presentation, physicist Wal Thornhill outlines the incredible and ongoing predictive success of the electric universe catastrophist paradigm.
There has been a flood of scientific reports recently supporting the electric universe model and confirming its predictions. But the most spectacular example of predictive success occurred on December 3rd, when it was reported in phys.org that the water in Saturn's rings and satellites is like that on Earth. Astonishingly, the water has the same signature isotopic ratios of deuterium to hydrogen, or heavy water, to normal water. It happened that the founder of mytho-historical cosmology, Dr. Immanuil Великовский, made the shocking claim based on his research in the 1940s that Earth's water came from Saturn. Of course, a single success is open to the charge that it was a lucky guess, no matter how well documented the research. But Великовский went on to be the only scholar before the space age to successfully predict the extreme surface temperature of Venus, the remnant magnetism of moon rocks, radio noises from Jupiter, and many other remarkable discoveries. His thesis uncovered a period within mythic human memory of awe-inspiring chaos in the planetary system involving electrical discharges between planets during close encounters, the mythic thunderbolts of the planetary gods. The ancients were adamant, as Heraclitus around 500 BC put it, it is the thunderbolt that steers the universe. It was no earthly spark. It took the strange, involuted corkscrew form of plasmoids and was associated with stones or meteorites falling from the sky and global devastation. It was Velikovsky who first threw down the gauntlet to modern astronomers to recognize electricity in space. They refused to pick it up and instead behaved like the Inquisition against Galileo. It seems an unstable solar system was against their religion. To squash growing interest in his ideas on campuses in America in the 70s, the American Association for the Advancement of Scientists, known as the AAAS, organized a thinly disguised ambush in San Francisco in 1974. It became a rallying cry for dissident scholars to attend the first international symposium on Velikovsky and the Recent History of the Solar System in Hamilton, Ontario, later that year, where, incidentally, I met Velikovsky and David Talbot for the first time. But nothing has changed in the following decades despite the space-age discovery that magnetism exists throughout the universe. It shows that astrophysics is in the wrong hands and should be passed to electrical engineers. Velikovsky's best-selling book, Worlds in Collision, published in 1950, was the inspiration for a number of scholars, which has lately resulted in a truly interdisciplinary cosmology based on human history and the electrical nature of matter and matter interactions, including the forces of magnetism and gravity. The electric universe was developed in an effort to explain the remarkable research results of those inspired by Velikovsky's forensic technique of investigating mythic history, in particular the works of David Talbot and Eduardo Cardona concerning the worship and central role of Saturn as our original sun. Electric universe cosmology re-establishes the successful classical physics of the 18th and 19th centuries, and its extraordinary successful space-age predictions contrast markedly with the lack of predictive success for the last century of the purely theoretical approach, which adopts mathematical concepts and ideals without regard for the principles of physics or basic standards and definitions. A classic case of the cart before the horse. The recent discovery of the isotopic likeness between the water of Saturn's rings and the Earth is documented in the Icarus paper, Isotopic Ratios of Saturn's Rings and Satellites, Implications for the Origin of Water and Phoebe. The simplest interpretation is that the long-held model of the formation of the solar system is invalid. The phys.org reports, by developing a new method for measuring isotopic ratios of water and carbon dioxide remotely, scientists have found that the water in Saturn's rings and satellites is unexpectedly like water on the Earth. Adding a neutron to one hydrogen atom, that then called deuterium, increases the mass of a water molecule by about 5%, in other words, heavy water, and that small change results in isotopic differences in the formation of a planet, moon, or comet, and changes the evaporation of water after formation. The deuterium to hydrogen ratio is a fingerprint of the formation conditions, including temperature and evolution over time. Evaporating water enriches deuterium in the remaining surface. Models for the formation of the solar system indicate that the deuterium to hydrogen ratio should be much higher in the colder outer solar system than in the hotter inner system where the Earth formed. Planetary scientists faced a fundamental problem to explain the presence of our oceans. The hydrogen and oxygen required would have been swept out of the inner solar system by the early sun. So they resorted to an ad hoc story that countless comet collisions from a hypothetical, invisible cloud of comets enclosing the solar system deposited the Earth's water eons ago. This new discovery discounts that hypothesis. A simple hypothesis will connect Saturn's rings material with the Earth. True, the deuterium to hydrogen ratio is a fingerprint of the water formation conditions, and it is more straightforward to not assume evolution of the ratio and to suggest that it is a fingerprint of the origin of the water on Earth. Given the success of Velikovsky's remarkable prediction based on documented evidence, we cannot simply assume the Earth formed in the inner solar system. This latest evidence clearly supports Velikovsky's mytho-historical cosmology, which identifies a close association between Saturn and the Earth within human experience. That means the comforting belief the Earth has been circling the Sun like it does today, largely undisturbed for billions of years, has been as great an impediment to scientific progress as the centuries-long and even more comforting belief in a primordially Earth-centered universe. Of course, two shockingly unexpected and related discoveries supporting an earlier scientific claim raises the odds enormously in favour of a hypothesis. This was true of Immanuil Великовский's later claim in 1950 of the extreme surface heat of Venus, when everyone else believed it would be similar to Earth because the two planets are twins according to conventional thinking. But the gravitational model of the formation of the solar system eons ago has been shown to be fictional now that we have discovered thousands of exoplanetary systems that don't match it. It persists only because it is the foundation of our uniformitarian belief in a safe, clockwork solar system. It is merely a soothing bedtime story about the history of Earth and our misunderstood and forgotten ancestors. De Santillana and von Dechend in Hamlet's Mill described our period as the Darwinian period, where the simple idea of evolution, which it is no longer thought necessary to examine, spreads like a tent over all those ages that lead from primitivism into civilization. Gradually, we are told, step by step, men produced the arts and crafts, this and that, until they emerged into the light of history. Those soporific words, gradually and step by step, repeated incessantly, are aimed at covering an ignorance which is both vast and surprising. One should like to inquire, which steps? But then one is lulled, overwhelmed and stupefied by the gradualness of it all, which is at best a platitude, only good for pacifying the mind, since no one is willing to imagine that civilization appeared in a thunderclap. The use of the word thunderclap is remarkably appropriate. And that is the crux of the problem. For Velikovsky's proposal of a red-hot cometary Venus as a motivation for the sudden rise of civilization challenged that comforting Darwinian belief. The result was a modern equivalent to medieval book burning. The textbook publisher, Macmillan, was threatened by latter-day astronomer priests who boasted they had not read the book because it was obviously wrong. It didn't obey Newton's laws, and stopped the publication of a bestseller. Specialism and an instinctive desire for celestial law and order rendered them blind to the forensic mytho-historical evidence Velikovsky had drawn together to understand that creation stories globally referred to almost unimaginably spectacular and terrifying behaviour of the planets. Velikovsky claimed it was the origin of our instinctive doomsday fear. Creation originally referred to the phases of the celestial spectacle and not to the universe. That makes sense. Modern cosmologists bit off more than they could chew when they supposed they had to compete with a universal creation story. That doesn't make sense. So what has Venus got to do with the water in Saturn's rings and satellites being found like that on Earth? The answer lies in the inspiration generated among a remarkable group of scholars by Velikovsky's well-documented thesis that early humanity witnessed Venus's birth and early appearance as the archetypal comet. He wrote, "In former times the planets played a decidedly more important role in the imagination of peoples, to which fact their religions give testimony. True, sun and moon were also numbered among the planet gods, but usually they were not the most important ones. Their enumeration among the 7 planets sometimes startles the modern scholar because these 2 luminaries are so much more conspicuous than the other planets. The dominance of Saturn, Jupiter, Venus and Mars must startle us even more as long as we do not know what was displayed on the celestial scene a few thousand years ago. The mythologies of all peoples concern themselves with the birth only of Venus, not with that of Jupiter, Mars or Saturn. Venus experienced in quick succession its birth and expulsion under violent conditions, an existence as a comet on an ellipse which approached the Sun closely, 2 encounters with the Earth accompanied by discharges of potentials between these 2 bodies, that is, thunderbolts of the planetary gods. Of course, as a pioneer, Velikovsky made errors. Chief among them was his placement of planetary chaos within historical times. The events he describes were memories at the times the pyramids were built, as evidenced by the pyramid texts. The plasma forms seen in the sky were chiselled into rock in the form of petroglyphs. It seems reasonable to suggest that echoes of the prehistoric catastrophes reverberated down into historical times and catalysed descriptions in terms of the remembered doomsday events. As to the first cause of havoc in the solar system, Velikovsky made this astounding intuitive leap. Some dark star, like Jupiter or Saturn, may be in the path of the Sun and may be attracted to the system and cause havoc in it. But of course, astronomers were right. This mytho-historical reconstruction was unique and could not be explained by the physics then or now. With no experience of the events of the myth-making epoch, the questions never occurred. It has taken lifelong dedication by a number of scholars with the courage to pursue Velikovsky's leads in the face of indifference and hostility, to understand his errors and to produce a surprisingly detailed sequence of events that demanded scientific explanations. It resulted in a truly interdisciplinary electric universe cosmology, with profound scientific and cultural significance for our future. As evidence, in June 2004, just prior to the Cassini spacecraft arriving at Saturn, I published Cassini's Homecoming, which was to show again the explanatory and predictive power of this multidisciplinary cosmology. I wrote, "A scenario follows that is so alien to any conventional theory of Saturn's history that it should be easily tested against information gained from the Cassini mission. It shows striking connections between many seemingly unrelated facts about certain planets. It's an epic story, and it involves us."
In our next episode, Thornhill will outline the successful predictions he offered in 2004, prior to the Cassini-Huygens mission to Saturn. Predictions based in part on the mytho-historical reconstruction, which has revealed the incredible yet forgotten role that Saturn played in the myth-making epoch in prehistory.